Good afternoon. The meeting is called to order. Mr. Troman, has anyone signed up for public comment?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Les Trobman. For the record, we do have two persons who would like to address the commission. When I call your name, if you could unmute yourself and then state your name and affiliation for the record. First, Heather Torres.
Yes, my name is Heather Torres, and I am the Director of Hope Lutheran Learning Center.
Go ahead, please proceed.
Okay. Thank you for having me. Like I said, my name is Heather Torres, and I'm the Executive Director of Hope Lutheran Learning Center located in San Antonio. I'm an active member of and national speaker of NACCE and AELL, and I'm honored to be here. I spoke at a previous Texas Workforce Commission meeting in regards to allowing child care centers to be able to charge the difference in the tuition prices and to allow child care centers to return to caring for non-essential workers' children. To my knowledge, child care centers are still not able to charge the parents the tuition difference between what our private pay rates are and what Texas Workforce Commission is paying, even though we will be providing for these children well into the summer for these families. We are, however, able to accept non-essential workers' children. With this, Governor Abbott gave child care centers 13 pages of further regulations on how to keep children, staff, and families safe and healthy during this time. I want to thank Governor Abbott for allowing us to care for these children, and I appreciate his care of keeping Texans safe and healthy. However, on page 6 of his 13 pages, he implemented new smaller child to caregiver ratios along with capping group sizes. Rent, utilities, insurance, supplies, and staff salaries are all built into the price of our tuition for each child. We can now only care for 8 infants total, down from 10. In each age group, we are needing to reduce the number of children per teacher or require an extra teacher to meet these new ratios. For example, in my 2-year-old room, one teacher used to be able to care for 11 children, and we charge $178 per week. Now, one teacher can only care for 8 children. But since I have 11 2-year-olds enrolled, I need to bring in another teacher to care for the other 3 children. The tuition price of 3 children does not cover the staff salary for one teacher. If I am able to move the 3 of the 11 children into another room in order to meet the new ratios, I would still need to increase my tuition rate to $245 per week, up from $178. Currently, most of my parents are essential workers and are receiving their tuition paid through TWC. And Texas Workforce only pays $136.30 per week for 2-year-olds. That is a loss of over $108 per week per child. And this is just one of my 8 classrooms. On top of that, asking a new parent who has been out of work from 6 to 8 weeks to pay this high tuition rate will result in greater financial stress on families across Texas. My biggest concern, however, is our school-age program. Before these rules, one teacher could care for 26 school-age children. Now one teacher can only care for 10 school-age children, with a group size cap of 20 children. On top of that, the square footage per child changed as well. My school-age classroom was able to hold 25 children. With the new square footage change, I can only care for 14. Currently, I have legal binding contracts with 25 children to allow to attend our school-age summer program that starts June 8th. What do I do with the other 9 children? If I do not provide care for them, I will be in breach of 9 legal contracts, and 9 children will be without care for the summer. And now I am asking 14 children to cover the cost of a program based on the tuition of 25 children. This will require me to raise the summer camp tuition from $165 per week to $295 per week per child. And again, Texas Workforce Commission is covering the cost of the majority of these children, and they only pay $133.45 per week for school age. That is another loss of $161 per week per child. Besides the financial stress this will put on child care providers and also families, it is the mental stress of deciding which rules do we follow and which do we not. Texas state licensing has a rule that teachers cannot work more than 10 hours straight without a break. In order for this to be done, classrooms before would combine at nap time, the children would nap together, and the teachers would relieve each other. But there is a new rule that states classrooms cannot combine. So how do I provide lunch breaks for teachers if I cannot combine? But I'm not allowed to let them work more than 10 hours straight. So which rule do I follow? The answer to this may just be hire more teachers in order to provide lunch breaks. But where will that funding come from to cover these salaries, as we have already are losing anywhere from $108 to $161 per week per child? My child care center has been open through this entire pandemic. We have followed every rule to the letter, and we have not had one child or staff come down with COVID-19, nor any other major illness or virus. I can see why page 6 of 13 introduced last week would be helpful for centers that were closed and as they slowly open, but it is harmful for centers that have been open this whole time. So I asked for an amendment to be made. Last week, Governor Abbott presented the 13 pages, and this gave closed child care centers a choice. If they follow the new rules, would it even be possible to open up at all? But for existing child care centers, we were not given a choice. So I asked for the new ratios and group size found on page 6 not to apply to centers that have been open throughout this pandemic. We will follow all the other rules, but we should be exempt from the ratio and group size change. I understand the thought behind them. The less children in a room, the more likely children will remain apart. However, you could put 8 2-year-olds on a football field and they will still find each other and they will find a way to play and learn together. I ask for this amendment to be voted on, passed, and placed into effect immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Pearson?
Good afternoon. Cynthia Pearson. I'm President and CEO of the Day Nursery of Abilene. We are a nonprofit child care provider in Abilene, Texas, the city's largest, most comprehensive program. And we, too, have remained open during this entire pandemic. And we have not had any issues. We've had no sicknesses of any of our children at all. And I concur exactly with what Ms. Torres is saying. In addition to that, there are a few other things that I'd like to point out about child care. So on 5/19, the COVID child care letter states that providers were to be paid 100% of cost, which we were not. Costs are higher than the reimbursement rates. The average parent share of cost formula that caused our agency back in April to lose funding, since we have a number of zero copay parents who are CPS parents. Our reimbursement was at the medium of the state, $75 per child. In a very rural Concho Valley was the highest in the state. They received $108 per child. The reference to no loss of funding was made several times for providers. There have been losses. The 25% enhancement rate was wonderful, and we appreciate it very much, and that needs to continue to help defray the cost of the new sanitizing needs, which we will continue. And we have to continue, especially because of the new protocol that Ms. Torres outlined already, put onto us by the governor last week, the 13 pages. The ratio costs, the lowering of the ratio is a huge impact to us, as well as lowering the group size, increasing square footage, mandating the no grouping in the mornings and the afternoons, and also the lunchtime issue, the nap time issues. Those are real causes for concern. Our estimate is that it's going to cost us $2,100 a day to make these provisions go into place, as well as the loss of children that we will have. There is a recommendation that I would like to make that you all continue to cover the parent share of costs for families that are choosing Texas Rising Star provider. I think that should be at least 50%. That would encourage parents to choose those quality providers. All of our centers are Texas Rising Star providers and have been since it was designated vendor back in 1992. Since you all are talking about nominees today on your agenda, I would also advocate that there are more child care providers, and I'm not talking about just expertise. I am talking about child care providers, a minimum of 3 that should sit on each workforce board due to the amount, more than 50% of the funding that each one of these boards oversees. Also, you're talking about demand occupations on your agenda today. I think TWC should now recognize that child care is a demand occupation. It's become very knowledgeable how critical our services are during this pandemic. We are deemed as essential during a pandemic and the necessity for low-income families with young children. And then just a very small thing on your website. This is an IT thing. There's a way that you all can either be able to minimize the chat with us so that when you're going to print a page off of the site, that always blocks information. I'm old school. I like to go and print things and then read them, but it blocks what you're trying to print. Either that or have an option that says print this page or email this page or share this page, but that chat with us box is in the way. I thank you again for the opportunity to provide comment today. What providers are and have been doing is essential, and we know that you'll agree that it is no small matter. It's a critical service for working families, businesses, community, aiding to the economic development of every community now more than ever. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We do have additional commenter, may have some technical issues though. Pat Smith. Is there anyone else who would like to address the commission at this time? This would be the appropriate time to provide public comment.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Miller.
Good afternoon.
We have no cases to reconsider under agenda item 3, is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Let's move then to agenda item 4, where we can consider tax liability cases. I believe we have one tax case on docket 21, is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's case number TD-19-135-0919. Commissioner Demerson,
I agree with staff recommendation.
Commissioner Alvarez,
I agree with staff's recommendation.
and Mr. Chairman.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Thank you.
We have no fair housing cases under agenda item 5, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
We will now move to agenda item 6. We have no wage claim cases pulled for additional discussion on docket 21.
That's correct. You should have received the short form dissent list.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 21.
I second the motion except for those cases on which I am dissenting, as reflected on the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 21.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting, as reflected in the wage claims short form dissent list for docket 21.
The motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you, sir.
We'll now move to agenda item 7, in consideration of unemployment insurance cases on docket 21. You can proceed when you're ready.
Thank you.
2440434, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The employer failed to establish good cause for missing the first hearing. The evidence obtained at the first hearing established that the claimant accidentally knocked a plastic soda bottle out of a coworker's hand. The cap was on the bottle. The bottle did not spill. The claimant simply picked up the bottle and handed it back to the coworker without incident. There was no indication of any argument between the claimant and his coworker. There was no horseplay, and there was no damage done. The AT correctly found no evidence of any specific act of misconduct on the claimant's part. Therefore, we should affirm the AT, no employer good cause, no misconduct chargeback.
The AT decision should be modified. I do not dispute the good cause finding at this time. Regarding the job separation, the claimant should be bound by his initial statements, which were provided before he was denied benefits. The claimant admitted in fact finding that he intentionally knocked a drink out of his subordinate's hands and that he knew he should not have done so. Further, he did not deny that his actions warranted immediate discharge under the employer's policies of which he was aware. The claimant's wavering testimony to the contrary is neither credible nor persuasive, since it is internally inconsistent and contradicts the initial statements he provided to the commission. Because the evidence establishes that the claimant engaged in intentional wrongdoing, we should modify the AT decision. The employer did not have good cause for its non-appearance, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
My vote is to reverse the AT. Employer establish good cause for AT1, resubmit and memo to UIO and CS to investigate possible unreported earnings.
All right. We have a majority vote that the employer did not establish good cause. Did any commissioner wish to reconsider their vote in light of the chairman?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so we have a majority vote that the employer did establish good cause for missing the prior hearing. Did you wish to resubmit, sir?
Yes.
Thank you.
I
Yes.
agree.
All right. Then we will resubmit the case and a memo to UIO and CS for potential unreported earnings.
Yes.
All right. Is there a dissent?
Short form dissent.
And we have a short form dissent for Commissioner Alvarez. Thank you.
2470828, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be reversed in this case. The claimant worked for about 10 days for the employer and quit because of her commute. The claimant had a commute over 2 hours each way to Houston during rush hour traffic. The claimant had been receiving benefits at the time that she had begun working for the employer and worked fewer than 4 weeks. She quit an unsuitable position, and the claimant should not be disqualified under Section 207.045G1 of the Act. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving.
The AT decision should be affirmed. Since the claimant was aware of the distance and commute when she accepted the job, since her mode of transportation was reasonable, and since the job paid above her maximum wage demand, the work was suitable. Thus, the claimant should not be qualified under Section 207.045G-1 of the Act. Furthermore, I would not agree to an MVI in this case because the claimant did not pursue other reasonable alternatives before quitting, and a doctor did not advise her to resign. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving.
I vote to rehear for testimony on the suitability of the job to determine whether Section 207.045G1 is applicable.
We have not achieved a majority vote. Did any commissioner wish to modify their vote in light of the chairman?
I'm fine with rehearing.
No rehear? And yes, rehear?
Yes, rehear.
Okay, so we have a majority vote to rehear
Yes,
the
ma'am.
case. Determine whether 207.045G1 applies. Next case, please.
2479425, Commissioner Demerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed. The claimant was discharged for failing to intervene to protect a resident. The claimant denies wrongdoing, but an investigation from the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services confirmed the allegation of neglect. The employer stated that the investigation was conducted by a separate state entity, and therefore the investigation results should be given greater evidentiary weight than the claimant's denials. We should therefore reverse the AT decision, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant was discharged because of an allegation of neglect regarding a resident. The claimant was accused of failing to protect a residence when coworkers were engaging in aggressive conduct towards the residents. The claimant did not engage in any aggressive conduct and was not aware of any events that supposedly happened. The employer did not provide firsthand testimony of the claimant's alleged conduct and failed to meet its burden to prove the claimant's misconduct by preponderance of the evidence. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
Reverse the AT, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent from Commissioner Alvarez.
2480402, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be modified. I agree with the AT that the claimant had good cause for their non-appearance at the AT1 hearing because he was working at the time of the hearing. On the separation, the claimant worked for a professional employer organization and was laid off by the employer's client company. He was asked to sign a document that contained information to report for reassignment. but he was not given a copy of the document. Under Section 207.045I of the Act, a professional employer organization is required at the time of separation to give the employee notice and instructions to report for reassignment. The claimant tried to call the employer to request additional work, but did not call the number that the employer required him to call. Since the employer did not comply with the requirements of Section 207.045I of the Act by providing the claimant a copy of the instructions to contact the employer for reassignment, the claimant had good cause connected with the work. Additionally, the claimant made a good faith effort to return to work and should not be penalized for the employer's failure to give him the document with the correct phone number to call to report. He therefore had good cause for not reporting under Section 207.045I2 of the Act. Modify the AT, claimant had good cause for the non-appearance at AT1, no voluntary leaving.
The AT decision should be affirmed. I agree that the claimant had good cause for his non-appearance. As to the job separation, the claimant testified that upon being released by the client company, he signed paperwork instructing him to contact the employer for a new assignment. However, he did not do so because he failed to read the paperwork, which is his responsibility. Thus, since the employer met the requirements under Section 207.045I of the Act, the claimant's failure to comply with the reporting policy constitutes a voluntary quit without work-connected good cause. We should affirm the AT decision. The claimant had good cause for his non-appearance, voluntary leaving.
Affirm the AT. Claimant established good cause for AT1, voluntary leaving.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent with Commissioner Alvarez.
2482963, Commissioner Alvarez.
The claimant's appeal should be deemed timely. The claimant's appeal has a fax transmittal stamp that bears the date of March 24th, 2020, which was the last day of the appeal deadline. Although the fax appeal was apparently not received by the Commission until 7 minutes after midnight on March 25th, the claimant clearly transmitted the fax the day before, and any delay in the Commission receiving the fax could be attributed to the major increase in communications from the public related to the COVID-19 pandemic. The claimant shouldn't be denied due process on her case just because there was a delay in the Commission receiving the appeal that was faxed prior to the deadline. Therefore, we should deem the claimant's appeal timely and have the case resubmitted on merits.
We should dismiss the claimant's appeal as late. We received the claimant's appeal several minutes after midnight on the day after the deadline. Therefore, in accordance with our timeline rules and consistent with prior decisions of this Commission, the claimant's appeal is not timely, and we do not have jurisdiction to consider the underlying merits. We should dismiss the claimant's appeal as late and leave the underlying AT decision in full force and effect.
Late Commission appeal, affirm the AT. Forfeiture provisions applied November 17, 2019 through October 24, 2020. Overpayment.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent for Commissioner Alvarez.
2483244, Commissioner Dimerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. While the claimant disputes being told anything about a period of time his severance was intended to cover, the AT's decision finding of fact revealed that the agency contacted the HR manager about the claimant's severance. The findings of fact go on to state that at that time, the HR manager indicated that the claimant was paid for 10 weeks of severance on January 17, 2020. Since this establishes that one of the parties to this case notified the Texas Workforce Commission of how long the severance was intended to last, a disqualification is in order for that amount of time. We should therefore affirm the AT decision. The claimant received wages in lieu of notice from January 12, 2020 through March 21st, 2020.
The AT decision should be modified. The claimant was paid a lump sum payment of about $11,000 on 1/17/20 in exchange for signing a release agreement. The claimant was not told that the payment covered a particular time period or number of weeks, and the agreement that allowed the claimant to receive the payment also did not specify the payment was considered payment for a particular number of weeks. As such, the claimant should only be disqualified for the receipt of severance pay during the week in which he received the payment. Modify the AT severance pay disqualification from 1/12/20 through 1/18/20.
Modify the AT severance disqualification from January 12, 2020 through January 18th, 2020.
Short form.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent for Commissioner Dimerson.
Case 2484047, Commissioner Alvarez.
I would set aside the AT decision. Although there are multiple timeliness issues involved in this case, the evidence is clear that the claimant drove for a ride-sharing concern for 1 month and did not work in employment. The claimant's cessation is the provision of ride-sharing services did not constitute an actual work separation, and the work separation and overpayment determinations should be void from inception. Set aside the AT decision, void the separation and overpayment determination.
The claimant filed his CA appeal beyond the applicable deadline. There are no good cause exceptions to the timeliness rules. As such, we should dismiss the claimant's CA appeal as untimely and leave the underlying decision in full force and effect. Untimely claimant appeal, voluntary leaving, overpayment of $3,042.
Deem commission appeal timely, reverse the AT. Timely claimant appeal, void separation and overpayment determinations.
Technical differences between the two votes between the chairman and Commissioner Alvarez. Commissioner Alvarez, you voted to set it aside, whereas the chairman voted to deem timely.
I would agree to that.
Thank you.
Short form.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent for Commissioner Demerson.
2484175, Commissioner Demerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The claimant's testimony appears to reflect that the final incident resulting in her job separation involved wrecking a company vehicle. The claimant admitted that she accidentally wrecked the vehicle. Since the AT was in the best position to weigh the evidence and gauge the credibility of the claimant, there is no reason to disturb that decision. We should therefore affirm the AT decision, misconduct, overpayment of $480. In the alternative, I would support a vote for a rehearing in this case to further develop the record on the specifics of the vehicle wreck.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant was discharged when she was removed from the schedule and not provided further work. The claimant admitted that she was in an accident about a month prior to the separation, but no evidence has been presented that the claimant was at fault. The employer made no mention of an accident in the statements to the commission. The employer's prior statements made some vague allegation about a customer service and falsified records, but there is no testimony or other evidence regarding those allegations. The evidence is insufficient to establish misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, no overpayment.
I concur with Commissioner Demerson's request to rehear.
We will rehear the case and resubmit. Next case, please.
2485698, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant is a veteran and was attending school using his GI Bill benefits. Therefore, his university program and his physical therapy assistant program were commission-approved training. The claimant testified that the work was not suitable because he was not used to being around kids. It was a loud and disorganized, and he did not like being in a closed-off area with lots of people because he found it to be stressful. Therefore, as the claimant left unsuitable work to attend commission-approved training, he should be qualified for benefits under Section 207.045J. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving, bill reimbursing employer, void adequate response.
The AT decision should be modified because commission records show that the claimant was not enrolled in TAA-approved training at the time of his separation from the named employer. Section 207.023 does not apply to the facts of this case. As such, this case should be analyzed under Section 207.045 of the Act. To that end, Section 207.045J does not apply because the claimant did not leave his last work to attend commission-approved training. Rather, since the claimant quit for personal reasons unrelated to TAA or commission-approved training, he quit without work-connected good cause, and his disqualification from benefits is appropriate. We should modify the AT decision, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, sever adequate response.
Modify the AT, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, sever adequate response.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent for Commissioner Alvarez.
2487403, Commissioner Demerson.
We should grant a rehearing in this case. The claimant's supervisor was unavailable to testify at the AT hearing. Testimony from this witness is clearly relevant and should be considered before we render a decision in this case. Thus, we should rehear for testimony from the claimant's supervisor.
The decision should be affirmed. The claimant provided sworn testimony that the spill was minor and that his supervisor had instructed him not to report such spills. The employer did not provide any sworn testimony to rebut the claimant's testimony. Accordingly, the evidence is insufficient to establish misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct chargeback.
I would concur with Commissioner Demerson's request for a rehearing.
Thank you. We will rehear and resubmit the case.
2488381, Commissioner Demerson.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant, a senior operations administrator, was discharged after he shared confidential employee information without authorization. First, the claimant went to the senior manager's office when he had no business reason for doing so and looked at papers on the manager's desk. There, the claimant found the termination paperwork of one of his superiors, showed the paperwork to a coworker, then proceeded to photograph the termination and share it with others. The claimant's justifications for his action was neither credible nor persuasive. Because the claimant was not authorized to review the documents on the senior manager's desk, and a reasonable employee in the claimant's position would have known that taking a photo of such confidential document and sharing it with others was not acceptable, the claimant mismanaged his position of employment. We should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The decision should be affirmed. The claimant was discharged for violating the employer's confidentiality policy. The claimant shared a photograph of a document with supervisors to determine to whom he should report since his manager was being fired. The claimant's failure to realize the document was confidential was reasonable given that a manager had left it in plain view of anyone walking by his office. The evidence is insufficient to establish misconduct. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Affirm the AT, no misconduct chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent for Commissioner Demerson.
2488914, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant was discharged for allegedly stealing merchandise. The claimant has denied the allegations consistently, and the employer provided no firsthand evidence at the AT hearing to prove its claims. The employer did not meet its burden of establishing the claimant's misconduct by the preponderance of the evidence. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant's denial of wrongdoing is not persuasive because it is outweighed by the employer's evidence. The record contains letters from customers, statements from 2 witnesses, and a testimony from a first-hand witness that the claimant hid items, failed to log items, and removed items from the employer's premises without permission and without paying for them. The claimant gave no explanation as to why disinterested witnesses, such as customers, would fabricate stories about the claimant. The employer also investigated before discharging the claimant. Since the weight of the evidence establishes that the claimant misappropriated company property, her disqualification is appropriate. We should affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, misconduct, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent for Commissioner Alvarez.
2489356, Commissioner Demerson.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. Per the home health president, the employment relationship continues until one party clearly notifies the other that employment relationship has ended. Here, the job separation did not occur when the claimant's client requested another provider. Rather, the claimant initiated the job separation when she rejected the employer's offer of a new assignment only 11 miles away. Neither the distance nor the number of hours provided the claimant with good cause to refuse the offer of work. In the home health care industry, it is the very nature of the work that assignments will vary in hours and length. Employees understand and accept that they may work multiple part-time assignments each week. Thus, in the absence of testimony from the claimant has failed to establish good cause for severing the employment relationship, and we should reverse the AT decision. Voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The decision should be modified. The claimant was removed from her last assignment without any allegation of misconduct. The employer immediately offered the claimant work, but that work would have resulted in a 30% reduction in income and a commute that was 5 times as long as her prior commute. The claimant had good cause to turn down the offer of work. Modify the AT, no volunteering leaving, chargeback.
Reverse the AT, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent from Commissioner Alvarez.
2489527, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be reversed. The claimant worked for a temporary help firm. The claimant's assignment ended on December 31st. The employer's office was closed for the holidays at the time and did not reopen until January 6th. On January 6th, the claimant responded to a text message from his account manager by providing a requested timesheet and asking if the employer had further work available. The account manager did not respond to the claimant's message. Shortly thereafter, the claimant called the employer's operation manager and asked about further work, but was told that no work was available at the time. Therefore, since the claimant contacted the employer to request further work when the employer's office reopened and was not offered any work, the claimant made himself available for reassignment and is not subject to disqualification. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving, chargeback.
The AT decision should be modified. The claimant did not report for reassignment in person as required by policy. The claimant quit without good cause connected with the work, and we should modify the AT decision. Voluntary leaving, no chargeback, sever, adequate response.
Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, void, adequate response.
We don't have a majority vote yet. Commissioner Alvarez, you voted VLOO, no voluntary leaving.
Yes, ma'am.
And the chairman voted under a misconduct statute. We just need to know which section of law to use.
Let me get some time real quick. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if I may, if I could ask the chairman again to repeat his ruling on this case.
You want,
Yeah, if you could repeat it.
reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, void, adequate response.
I'd agree with the chairman.
Thank you. We have a majority vote
Short form dissent.
and a short form dissent for
Yes.
Commissioner Demerson.
Thank you. Ms. Miller, can I just interrupt real quick, since I
sir.
have you there?
Yes, sir.
On the first case that we had, case 2440434, was the very first case.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask again what the chairman's result, or his remarks were on that?
Employer did establish good cause for missing the prior hearing, resubmit the case for merits testimony, and memo to UIONCS to investigate possible unreported earnings.
Okay. So I know that there was a unanimous on the resubmit, right? We had a majority to resubmit?
I have a majority. I did not record a GCOE, a good cause for you. Did you wish that?
Well, I had did establish no good cause for his non-appearance. My question, I guess, is, do I still need to short form this? Or since we're resubmitting?
It'll be resubmitted. There's no final decision coming out yet, so you'll have an opportunity to short form when the final decision is
Okay.
made.
So I think on the record, I had stated I would short form. Can I avoid that?
Certainly.
Okay.
There's no harm done.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure of that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Chairman.
Absolutely.
And that puts us on case number 15, case number 2490497. Commissioner Demerson.
The appeal tribunal decision is fully supportable and should be affirmed. The claimant initiated the job separation when he stopped performing services for pay for almost 6 weeks while work was still available in order to care for his wife who had injured her knee. While this may be a very compelling reason for temporarily quitting his job, the reason is personal and not good cause connected with the work. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, overpayment of $2,535.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant was on an approved leave of absence from the employer. Neither the claimant nor the employer considered the claimant to have been separated from employment. The claimant did not file an unemployment claim based on the job separation. He was simply filing regular payment requests because he was partially unemployed following a job separation from his full-time employer. There was no job separation. Reverse the AT, void the ruling on job separation, no overpayment.
Affirm the AT, voluntary leaving, overpayment.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent for Commissioner Alvarez. Next case, please.
2491088, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be reversed. The claimant returned to work in the first week of November 2019. The commission requested him to furnish a work search log for the benefit week ending 10/19/19, but the claimant had already returned to work and was no longer reviewing his electronic correspondence when the request was made. Under Appeal 2722-CA-77, a claimant with return to work date within 6 weeks is no longer required to search for work. The claimant should not be held ineligible for failing to produce a work search log for a benefit week during which he was not required to search for work. The claimant's appeal should be deemed timely, and the reopening and overpayment should be voided. Reverse the AT, deem appeal timely, void reporting, and overpayment determinations.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant filed a late appeal because he was not checking his TWC inbox. The claimant was still filing claim certifications when the agency sent him a work search log request, so he should have been on notice that he was required to take action. Thus, because the claimant's appeal was not timely, we do not have jurisdiction to consider the underlying merits, and we should affirm the AT decision. The claimant filed a late appeal reporting not eligible October 13, 2019 through October 19, 2019, overpayment of $442.
Affirm the AT, untimely claimant appeal, reporting not eligible October 13, 2019 through October 19, 2019, overpayment.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent for Commissioner Alvarez.
2491475, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be reversed. Although the claimant went off script on a sales call with a potential customer, this was a follow-up call after the claimant had previously stuck to the script on the original call with the customer. On the follow-up call, the customer was very flirtatious with the claimant. The claimant tried to keep the customer focused on the sale, but the customer continued to flirt. Eventually, the claimant mildly engaged in some personal conversation with the customer in order to make the sale. The claimant had only worked for the employer for a little over a week and had not received any formal warnings. She was unaware she had to stick to the script on the follow-up sales call, and the customer in question had no complaint about the claimant's behavior, as demonstrated by him testifying on the claimant's behalf. Therefore, the employer did not meet its burden of establishing the claimant's actions constituted misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, no overpayment.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. Regarding the job separation, the claimant went off script on a customer call. The employer testified that the claimant was trained with a group of new hires, and the group was repeatedly instructed to follow the script word for word. The claimant admitted that she knew the employer wanted her to follow the script, but that it was too lengthy and not informative enough to make a sale. The employer also stated that the call was so unprofessional that it was grounds for immediate discharge. Since the claimant did not follow the employer's instructions, her actions constituted work-connected misconduct. We should therefore modify the AT decision, misconduct, overpayment of $1,078, correct finding of fact.
Modify the AT, misconduct, overpayment, correct findings of fact.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent from Commissioner Alvarez. The last case.
2495082, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant provided firsthand testimony that he gave his supervisor 3 weeks' notice that he had a child support hearing. He also gave the employer notice the day of the hearing at 7 a.m. and again before 9 a.m. The employer only provided secondhand testimony from the HR representative that the claimant failed to give notice. Therefore, the greater weight of the evidence indicates that the claimant provided the employer notice and was discharged for reasons other than misconduct. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The employer's testimony reflects that the claimant did not report his absence as required. The employer's testimony also reflects that the claimant was verbally warned numerous times not to be late for work. As such, the claimant's actions constituted misconduct connected with the work. We should affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, misconduct, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent from Commissioner Alvarez. And this last UI case pulled for additional discussion on docket 21. You should have received the short form dissent list.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 21.
I second the motion except for those cases on which I am dissenting, as reflected on the UI short form dissent list for docket 21.
I concur with the chairman's motion except for the cases on which I am dissenting as reflected in the UI short form dissent list for docket 21.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This brings us to the end of agenda items 3 through 7. Let's pause for a moment to reset for the rest of the meeting. Thank you. Let's start back with agenda item 8, apprenticeship training program, discussion, consideration, possible action regarding apprenticeship training program funding for fiscal 21.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Carrie Ballas. Want to make sure you can hear me okay?
I can hear you.
I can as well.
Okay, great. So good afternoon, Commissioners. Mr. Cerna, for the record, this is Carrie Ballas, Workforce Development Division. For your consideration today is the fiscal year 2021 planning estimates for apprenticeship training programs. Each year, the Texas Workforce Investment Council, also known as TWIC, makes recommendations regarding the Chapter 133 apprenticeship training program. For 2021, TWIC has made the following recommendations. A contact hour rate not to exceed $4.25 and a 5% reserve for new programs or established programs not currently receiving funds. Commission decision points are on the following for FY21 funding. A planning estimate of $5,382,785, which includes $3,732,785 in general revenue and $1,650,000 in WIOA funds for FY21 registered apprenticeship training funds, contingent on adoption of TWC's FY21 operating budget. A contact hour rate not to exceed $4.25 and a 5% reserve of planning estimate funds for new or established apprenticeship programs that did not receive Texas Education Code Chapter 133 funds in FY20. As required by Texas Administrative Code Rule 837.21, with the Commission's approval, we will provide public notice of the amount of funds available to support apprenticeship training programs for FY21. That concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Comments or questions?
I have some. Carrie, I want to thank you. Correction. Sorry about that. Carrie, I want to thank you and Desi for this report. I also want to take a moment to recognize the stellar training program. I do not know of any other training program where an individual begins working on day one, graduates with an industry-recognized credential with little or no debt, college debt, I should say. I am proud that Texas Workforce continues to support this type of training model. So thank you and Desi again for this report.
Thank you, sir.
Is there a motion?
Yes, sir. I move that we approve planning estimates of $3,732,785 in general revenue and $1,650,000 in WIOA funds for fiscal year 21 registered apprenticeship funds, contingent on adoption of TWC's fiscal year 21 operating budget. An FY21 contact hour rate not to exceed $4.25, and a 5% reserve of planning estimate funds for new and established registered apprenticeship training programs that did not receive Chapter 133 funds in fiscal year 2020.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Unless there's an objection, I request we postpone agenda item 9, eligible training provider criteria related to target occupations, to the next commission meeting.
I'm okay with that, Chairman.
No objections. Thank you. This will bring us to agenda item 10, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the timeline for compilation and completion of the agency's 2021 through 2025 strategic plan. Changes from previous year's requirements for incorporation into the plan, information on the narrative of the document, and important highlights on directions from the Legislative Budget Board for completing the 2021-2025 strategic plan.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Dimerson, Tom McCarty, External Relations. With you today, I've got an outline in front of you all with the elements for the 2021 to 2025 strategic plan that will be due before August the 1st with the to the LBB and the Governor's Office. Mr. Chairman, if you're okay with it, I'll just go off of the bolded line items and ask for input for each section. Okay, the first section that we have is on page 1, line 3, the current mission statement is to promote and support a workforce system that creates values and offers employers, individuals, and communities the opportunity to achieve and sustain economic prosperity. Wanted to see if you all had any input to that mission statement.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask the commissioners to consider inserting families between individuals and communities, so that it would read employers, individuals, families, and communities. One of the things that our service to Texas during the pandemic has shown us is that we're serving families as well as individuals and employers.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. And we'll have time to come back to this as well. Or is this is not final?
Yes, sir. We would, right now, we're just collecting kind of input from the commissioners.
Right.
We'll come back at the end of June, beginning of July with the final, the final draft for adoption, and you can actually make changes during that time as well.
Okay, okay. I'm fine with that right now.
Without objection.
Okay. On page 1, line 6, the current vision statement, TWC and its workforce solutions partners will maximize the power of innovation and partnership to boost superior business outcomes and realize a competitive advantage for all Texans in the global economy.
So you added superior, or what was the change?
There is no change.
I like it.
Yeah. Let's go through here, Tom, and hit the things that you've changed from the prior document.
The only thing that we've changed from the prior document, sir, would be if you go down to the commissioner's message on line 33, beginning there, I've bulleted out some items there as a starting point for discussion as far as the commissioners. This will be the letter that we would
All
have.
right, let's pause right there for just a second. So the philosophy, all of that is what was in the prior document?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, verbatim. I would view that the same. I went and checked that. So are there any changes we might wish to make today on the philosophy section of this document?
Not on the philosophy.
On the philosophy
no.
section? Okay, so
Okay.
you're saying on commissioner message, then, obviously, this is gonna be a little different, going forward into this, document. And what you've done is outline, some of the topics that, you believe we should hit in the commissioner message.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
All right, and you've listed here, a number of bullet points, that would, be your recommendation on things that, that we would communicate.
Yes, sir.
All right. In the interest of efficiency, let's do this. Do you guys want him to read this out, or do you just want to, we've all had a chance to look at this. Do you just want to make some comments at this point?
So I have a few comments, Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
So just for the commissioner's message, I agree with the recommendations that Tom brought forward. Mine are just very simple. For example, the unemployment rate is 14 million. I mean, the Texas workforce is 14 million, no longer 13. So I had that changed. That was a minor adjustment. I'm trying to figure out here on the line, because mine, I should have printed the one with the line. Hold on. On the, let me check. Here it is. So last time we did this, it was 13 million. This year, it's 14 million unemployment rate. Tom, I apologize. The paper that I printed should have the number aligned where they are. One of the changes I had was if there was a possibility for us to change like a word. The strategies will help equip Texans with skills, education, and training needed to be competitive for the careers of today and the future. So I was changing the word jobs to careers.
Okay.
That's just a recommendation. We don't have to do it. I was just bringing that forward. And I apologize, gentlemen. I thought I had these numbered on mine.
And Commissioner Alvarez, that's off of the letter from last year?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I agree with the chairman on the recommendations you brought forward, like tri-agency, COVID-19. These are just maybe some things I'd like to add to that, to the messaging.
Sure.
Right here, well, again, I'm okay with that.
So Commissioner, I do just want to make sure we all understand. Based on what we tell them today, our staff's going to write this report. It'll come back to us for a final vote, at which time we'll be able to make
Okay,
edits
I'm
as
fine with that.
necessary.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Now, we'll have to make those edits in public meeting and from the dais, but we will have an opportunity to make edits
Okay.
nonetheless.
yeah.
Okay.
Good job, Tom. It was just, the 14 million is the only one I was thinking of.
Okay, and and I'll also make a point to, the jobs, the careers
If-
reference as well.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Demerson?
No, I'm expecting a new letter, so we'll have an opportunity to move forward. So.
Okay.
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 Thanks, Chairman.
Okay, with that then, if you go to page 2, the beginning of line 6, TWC goals, we've got goal 1. These are the same goals as that we've used in the previous report. From that standpoint, we have a total of 5 goals, I believe, that we have. The only change that I have, Commissioners, in the goals is on goal 2, line 20. You'll see especially those underlined. So this would read, promote employers' access to the talent, abilities, individuals, especially those with a disability, accommodate such workers in the workplace, and assist them with maintaining and advancing their careers successfully. So the question for y'all would be, we can go through each goal individually, look at them as a whole, get the commissioner's input on it. If we would like to just keep them as they are, make changes.
Well, my preference would be we just tackle them, all 5 goals simultaneously.
Okay.
If commissioners have changes or recommendations at this time, let's just do it all at once and knock this section out.
Okay, because I have one on the line in 20 as well.
Okay.
I omitted the word especially those, felt like it might have been a target. So I put there, promote employers' access to the talent and abilities of individuals with a disability, transitioning foster youth and those being released from prisons, accommodate such workers in the workplace and assist with maintaining and advancing their careers successfully. So I did away with the word especially those.
Okay.
But that's just, again, a recommendation.
Commissioner Alvarez, I understand what you're wanting to do there. And I certainly do not object to bringing in other groups that we have come to understand could use additional assistance, particularly foster youth and others.
And the reason I reference that, Chairman, is because I know on the commissioner's remarks or messaging, it talks about the tri-agency 60 by 30, and those folks are actually referenced in there.
I would recommend that we consider just creating a new goal for additional groups. I say that because we have a goal here for individuals with disabilities. We have a goal later for veteran service members and spouses. And I think that particularly for foster youth and others that you mentioned in your amendment, I think they certainly could support their own goal. And I would be very supportive of adding a sixth goal that would represent those groups and their interests.
I would as well. I didn't see anything in here about child care, foster youth, or folks that have been touched by the justice system. They weren't referenced, but yet we are referencing them in our messaging.
So Commissioner Alvarez and I would be in agreement on adding a sixth goal, Commissioner Demerson.
I'm fine with that. I think
Okay.
it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that
Okay.
includes the foster youth and stuff like that, Aaron.
Okay, we'll add a sixth goal, and we will highlight some items that some recommendations for specific actions to reach the sixth goal, and we'll bring that to you all at the
great
next
idea.
meeting.
And particularly on goal 2, where you've added especially those, actually with the addition of sixth goal, I don't think you need
Okay.
especially those, because this goal becomes dedicated to our services for Texans with disabilities.
Okay, we'll remove that as well.
All right, Commissioner Alvarez, any other additions to the goals from your standpoint?
Not in that line.
Yeah, Commissioner Demerson?
And I-
All right.
Okay, if there are no additions to that, the last part of this would be on the last page, TWC external and internal assessments on line 1. Here we're going to add message on external and internal factors. This is another opportunity to highlight anything external or internal that you would want to put into the report that's separate from the letter or anything of that nature. We will add in here federal legislation as an external factor to this, but if there's anything that you recognize for internal or external, we can add that here.
Okay. Do you have anything in mind at this point, or is this something we should bring back as an amendment when we?
I
when we
can
come up with it?
get with staff and we can come up with some ideas for you for the
I mean,
next.
there's a lot of external factors going on right now.
There are quite a few external factors going on, so we can certainly highlight those.
Okay.
Okay, we'll bring that to you. The only other change that we have in here, Commissioners, on line 7, redundancies and impediments, we identified the ability to scale up quickly to deliver services as a impediment, as well as reevaluating traditional staffing work schedules and expansion of telecommuting in order to continue agency operations. And this would be different from previously we'd come out of a sunset review, so we did not list any redundancies or impediments because those were identified in the sunset review process. So this would be the addition that we have here.
So you're suggesting the speed with which we can pivot and deal with environmental?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right.
Chairman, I failed to reference, when you asked me about TWC goals, I do have one. It's on the goal 3, Tom.
Okay.
And so I'm asking on line 10, it starts off by saying, address the workforce training needs of employers by leveraging skills development fund, grants, and other available resources to support in-demand job training. Continue to work with base learning opportunities through internships, mentorships, and I added apprenticeships as job shadowing. So I added apprenticeship. These efforts are ongoing and will continue during the 5-year plan.
So your amendment would be simply the addition of apprenticeships to this, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
And then to close, Commissioners, on last page, line 13 through 23, these are just sections that are just reports that we have, that are normal reports, like you adopted the customer relations report last week. That'll get added in here. It's just things of that nature. This is just purely an FYI. I just wanted to mention that to you.
Thank you.
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Commissioners, anything additional for
No.
Tom?
Hey, Tom, is it strategic plan? It says 2020 through 2025, and you mentioned 2021.
Yes, sir, it's a typo on my part.
So
It's 21
2021.
to 25.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
Tom,
sir.
do you have what you need?
I do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Moving then to item 12. Nothing under agenda item 11. So item 12 is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding guidance on resource utilization and implementation of services and strategies to target disaster relief efforts in public health emergencies, including those funded with the Department of Labor's Disaster Dislocated Worker Grant.
We only have one, and that's from Clay, who decided to show up in person this time.
Wow.
That's what he looks
He
like.
actually left the Citadel of North Lamar.
He's normally at an undisclosed location, so.
Yeah, exactly. Good afternoon, Chairman Daniel,
Good
Mr.
afternoon.
Alvarez, Commissioner Dimerson, Mr. Cerner, for the record, Clay Cole, Unemployment Insurance. Just want to give you a quick update on UI operations. And we were open yesterday for the Memorial Holiday, most of the UI team, and today we saw a record payout of over $800 million in benefits. And to date, that brings us close to nearly $8 billion in benefits paid out. We will surpass that this week. We continue to work closely with information technology, communications, operational insights on our data analytics and messaging, just looking for opportunities to improve and also just ways to better customer service delivery. We also this weekend completed, and one near completed, we'll complete it tomorrow, but two initiatives. One, another big outreach initiative, trying to reach about a little over 250,000 customers that have a claim with us, but for whatever reason have never requested payment. And so we actually tailored some specific detailed messages for these customers, advising them, and these were emails that went out Friday and Saturday, and then communications and UI working together to send text messaging to these people the day of their filing date to remind them. And then we're going to follow that up with some U.S. postal mail letters. You know, we're just doing everything we can to reach these people. Minded, they may have gone back to work. There may be legitimate reasons, but it just seems like that's a big group. And so we're just doing everything we can. We're going to assess it next week to see how successful we are, because we may need to do it again. So anyway, we're anxious to see the results of that campaign this weekend. The other thing this weekend, and early this week, we're wrapping up the pandemic emergency unemployment compensation notices going out, roughly 130,000. And so to date, 96% have been mailed. There's a small percentage that will mail tomorrow that will just advise those people that have exhausted regular unemployment benefits to go trigger their pandemic unemployment assistance. So anyway, we've seen some pretty good results. Almost 30,000 of those individuals have been signed up for PEC, so we'll continue to monitor that closely. We also continue to actively work on the Texas reopening businesses, so we're getting plans together for that and how we expect some of that outreach, and then also just new types of services that we're going to need to provide for those impacted. Also, really continue to monitor all of our assignments closely and just finding ways to shift resources to meet our needs. And so that's just something that we're closely monitoring. Big thanks again to all our volunteers, external, internal, who continue to help us make the difference in servicing those Texans in need. And this concludes my update, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any comments or questions for Clay?
Good report, Clay. And I want to thank you for coming by our meeting with us last week, through Zoom, I should say. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You guys keep up the good work.
Thank
Just keep going. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, Clay, thank you for keeping the trains running as much on time as we can. I do want to, for the record, state. I continue to appreciate the innovation that your team is bringing to this, us taking the initiative and performing direct outreach to people that we can determine through our computing technology have a problem that seems undiagnosed. I think a lot of the times we would just assume that everything will get taken care of, and I sincerely appreciate, on behalf of all Texans, you're not assuming everything will get taken care of, and going ahead and taking care of that. I know, there's been press accounts, and it's true. There was a time when the phone was ringing 4,000 times a minute. We are absolutely trying to get all those calls answered, and I think the innovation that you're showing to find ways to help people get what they need, and particularly when we think we've seen a problem that somebody might not even know they have a problem, those kinds of efforts are absolutely critical. I think that most Texans that would hear about that would appreciate it, and so thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for the work that you're doing.
TWC and UI team, thank you.
Absolutely. To the whole team. Any questions, comments for Clay?
No, just keep up the great work, Clay, and thanks for all your assistance, seriously.
Thank you. Let's see, just one more thing under agenda item 12 before we leave it. We've been about 60 days dealing with various issues related to COVID-19. About 6 weeks ago, we moved some money to provide for additional training and some things like that. Some changes have taken place in the state's economy in terms of things that are reopened and the ability for businesses to continue to reopen. I would ask at the June 2nd commission meeting, which is our next regularly scheduled meeting, that staff come back to us and talk to us about the various commission actions that we have taken and where we are with that action, what the result has been, and whether we need to make any modifications to actions that we've already taken. So we've been consistent as commissioners each time we've taken action, asking staff for regular updates, and they have been providing that. What I would like to do, though, is have in our open meeting, be able to address things and try to understand if we need to make any changes, just based on the fact that some of the fact sets have changed since we made these decisions 6, sometimes 8 weeks ago. I just want to make sure that what we're doing is helpful and continuing to address the issues that Texans are telling us that they have.
Yes, sir, we'll do that.
Ed, I agree with the chairman. We received a kind of an overview of what we were doing with the WIOA funding, alternative funding, and I appreciate you answering the question I had earlier, that the report that was given to us about what we were doing, updates with the funding that was available. And I think one of the questions I asked you was a virtual job fair licenses. What did that mean? Was that a software? And so I appreciate you answering that. So along with the report that you all are providing us, some detail exactly on what the funding is being used with would certainly be helpful.
Yes, sir.
So rather than just say virtual job fair license, what does that mean? Is that software, virtual orientations, and workshops? I mean, this is good stuff. I think it's high level, but maybe a little bit more detail of what these things specifically would cover. We have some really good folks around the state that have some really good innovative ideas. I mean, we're hearing things from Cedar Valley College where they're thinking about purchasing mobile units. They're meeting locally with their board members. I'm hoping that's taking place, but we have some really good things, and that would be very helpful when we could say there is a board area that's actually doing something like that. You may want to reach out to them. The other thing is, Chairman, and I may be mistaken, but do we have a board meeting on June 2nd, or has that been postponed for the following week?
My calendar's showing June 2nd, and that we are not having a meeting on June 9th, and that June 16th would be the next one.
Okay, so it's the 9th. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, sir, we can do that too.
Go with the comments.
All right. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. That'll move us to item 13, board nominees for discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding approval of local workforce development board nominees.
She's muted.
Good afternoon, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Dimerson, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, Shanta Williams with the Workforce Development Division. And before you for consideration today, we have Workforce Board nominees for Workforce Solutions, Brazos Valley, Cameron County, Deep East Texas, Greater Dallas, Middle Rio Grande, and Southeast Texas. Staff recommends that all nominees be approved at this time, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Comments or questions?
No, Chairman.
None here.
None. Do we have a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the board nominees for Brazos Valley, Cameron County, Deep East Texas, Greater Dallas, Middle Rio Grande, and Southeast Texas.
Second, the motion.
It's been moved seconded. We're unanimous. Thank you. All right. Ed, do you have anything on your executive director?
No, sir, I have nothing to report.
All right. Let's see, before we move out of this meeting, a couple of points of personal privilege that I would take. I would like to take a moment to welcome Micah Cantu to our office. She joins effective today. We're certainly glad to add someone with such strong TWC experience to our staff. And then additionally, after 36 years and 7 commissioners, Billy Menchaca is retiring at the end of the month, and we wish her well and congratulations on what I know will be some new adventures this summer and certainly into the fall. And so I can't say enough how helpful she's been to me and a lot of people around the agency. And it's always moments like this where I'm happy and sad all at the same time. So I was so sad to see her go and so happy for her, looking to make some additional adventures in this life. Is there any other order of business that should come before the commission?
We wish her well. Thank you,
Yeah,
Chairman,
thank
for
you.
acknowledging that.
Chairman, I'd like to congratulate Billy as well. You mentioned, when you said 7 commissioners, that's something. I'm looking forward to the book. So have Billy, she probably has stories to tell, and so wish her well and appreciate all that she's done for the Texas Workforce Commission.
Absolutely. Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Chairman and Commissioner, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. This meeting is adjourned.